And our first story for Friday, ladies and gentlemen, let's cover something that, well, it might not be the most fun. It's necessary knowledge, though, for understanding our neighbors across the pond. I refer, of course, to the United Kingdom, the UK, Britain, land of the dreary, whatever you want to call them, these fun chaps across the pond that give us the Beatles, Top Gear, the worst version of The Office, and unfortunately, Pakistani child exploitation gangs. Folks, this is unfortunate. No one wants to be telling you about this, but there is a 219-page independent inquiry report that is it's going a pretty viral, flamey, what do you call it nowadays? When I know that viral isn't really the term that you use anymore, because nothing goes viral these days anymore. Nothing's viral. But in general, this investigation has gotten a lot of people's attention. And it reveals that organized rape gangs operated with near total impunity across at least 149 local authority districts over several decades. Now, this panel estimates that as many as 250,000 young and vulnerable girls were subjected to systematic trafficking, gang rape, and profound physical and psychological abuse since the mid-20th century. Christ. So, the document lays blame squarely on a catastrophic breakdown of public protective systems, pulling back the curtain on decades of institutional blindness. Police forces, social services, healthcare providers, and schools consistently failed to safeguard victims, frequently ignoring disclosures of abuse. Tragically, the report details how traumatized children who did try to seek help were often blamed, criminalized, or framed by the authorities as complicit in their own exploitation, allowing dangerous predatory networks to expand unchecked across the country. So, in a highly charged segment, the inquiry details how paralyzing fear of being labeled culturally insensitive or Islamophobic actively prevented frontline professionals and law enforcement from aggressively investigating and naming the threat. Now listen, this fear of being labeled Islamophobic is real in the United Kingdom. Do you want to know why? But listen, people don't really worry about being labeled a homophobe, an Islamophobe, or a racist in America. Do you know why? Because you can't be arrested for having an opinion. That is actually, believe it or not, whether or not you think it's great that you're allowed to have contradicting opinions, whether or not you think it's great that somebody is allowed to, I don't like black people, I don't like white people, guess what? Unfortunately, the words cannot hurt you. The words cannot. So we allow people to have the opinions inside their own heads or in their homes that they're allowed. You're allowed to think whatever you want. Nobody's going to be trying to police your thoughts. Now in the UK, that's a very different story. See, you can be labeled very, very easily as a hate mongerer. You are guilty of hate speech. As a result, then, you will be persecuted for this and may be jailed for it. Now, the report explicitly connects the prominent demographic of the offenders, noted predominantly as Muslim men of Pakistani heritage, to specific religious justifications used to dehumanize and control their young non-Muslim victims. Whistleblowers and survivors have provided harrowing testimonies of being subjected to religiously charged abuse designed to enforce submission and humiliation. Now listen, this is not remotely surprising. As you all know, religions in general there are these weird masks that mainly MK Ultra mind manipulators wear in order to subject their crew, all of their congregation. It is mind control when you look at it at a grand scale. The Jesuits, the Jews, and the Muslims, they're all guilty of it. Now, the publication has sparked an immediate political emergency, driving urgent demands for fundamental structural reform within the UK to dismantle the legacy of institutional failure. The report issues aggressive national recommendations, including the creation of a specialized Crown Prosecution Service unit and a detailed, organized, group-based Child Sexual Exploitation Act. As survivor networks applaud the immense courage of those who came forward to testify, lawmakers are facing an immediate, painful reckoning over the state's historical failure to protect its most vulnerable citizens. Let's see more.
To the UK now, because the independent report into Britain's grooming gang scandal has been handed down, and the details are harrowing of the rape and abuse of potentially hundreds of thousands of young girls at the hands of predominantly Pakistani men. Now, the report, spearheaded by Rupert Lowe, suggests that the gangs operated with either the active or passive consent of public authorities. Let's go now to writer and broadcaster Esther Kraku. Esther, thank you so much for your time. We really...
Okay, hold on a second. I just want to throw this in. Of the majority of the networks composed primarily of Pakistani Muslim men, it's not remotely surprising that they would be reformulated of it. That's like saying that one of these child exploitation rings is run mostly by Catholics. It makes total and complete sense. These are religions that are based around trauma-based sexual exploitation to turn people into slaves to their religion. That's how these religions work.
This report, it's more than 200 pages. What more can you tell us?
Tell us.
So this report was largely crowdfunded by the public, actually, to the tune of about £600,000. So there was a lot of grassroots interest in an independent inquiry that actually spoke to the survivors and got, first-hand testimony of people that have been involved either as victims or families of victims, or local law enforcement that learned about the incompetence of their own colleagues with regards to investigating the grooming gang scandal. And this happens to be released on the anniversary of Baroness Casey's review that the government had sanctioned last year and was released, where she made some scathing criticisms towards the government, particularly with regards to its incompetence in supporting the victims. And so that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call for the government. Unfortunately, Baroness Casey has once again criticized the government.
I would love to bring this up. In a country where you would expect the majority, because it is a white nation, you would expect the majority of the assailants, especially in like Manchester, Greater Manchester, all of them, to be predominantly white. Now, when you look at these statistics around multi-victim, multi-offender cases in Greater Manchester, 38% of the assailants are white. Would you like to guess how many of them were Asian ethnicity, predominantly Pakistani? 52%. That's just, it's disproportionate. It's bizarre. Am I saying that it's fine that the white guys are out there doing it? Of course not. You want all these monsters to be held to account. It's just weird when people who have immigrated to a country show up in disproportionate numbers. Like when the Italians move on over, it's weird how they show up in disproportionate numbers in the mafia. It's not nice. It's not great. Maybe we slow down how many we bring into New York, at least until the people with like last names like Caprioni and shit stop starting families over in the United States. Maybe it would be a good idea to restrict some Italian immigration, maybe. And you know what? They knew that with the Italians even back then. They were like, all right, maybe we'll restrict a little bit of Italian immigration because like they're not even white, right? At least that's how they used to think back in the day. They were like, you're Scots, I'm Scots-Irish, you're Italian, we're not even the same race.
The first case of a Pakistani rape gang apparently dates back to Bradford in 1955.
That's a while.
This abuse has been going on for more than 70 years. Rape gang convictions between 1997 and 2018 reveal that 87% of people convicted for group-based sexual abuse have traditional Muslim names. Analysis of 264 convictions for group-based...
See, that's an even higher percentage than just the Greater Manchester area.
Child sexual exploitation between 2005 and 2017 found that 84% of the perpetrators were South Asian, with the vast majority Pakistani Muslim.
Yikes.
Only 7% were white, 8% were black. This indicates that white people are actually underrepresented, and those of South Asian or Muslim identity are significantly overrepresented when it comes to group-based child sexual abuse. Now, they've traced the abuse in this report to 149 local districts. Apparently, that is 40% of all of the districts across the UK. Some girls were trafficked to the Middle East to undergo Islamic marriage abroad. The victims were often called white trash or kafar, and victim testimony reveals that they were targeted specifically for being non-Muslim.
Interesting.
The report identifies the Islamic doctrine of al-wala wal-bara as a key factor. They say it's superiority of men over women, domination of non-believers, sex slavery, etc.
What a beautiful religion of peace. That's at least what I hear from a lot of Islams and Muslims in general. It's like, no, we are a religion of peace. Sounds like it.
The report also says that it is directly due to mass immigration that this ideology was brought into Britain. Now, there was a failure right across all aspects of the state. Police reportedly ignored or destroyed evidence and criminalised the victims. Medical professionals allegedly discharged girls as young as 13 who presented at medical facilities with sexually transmitted diseases, who were pregnant, or had even attempted suicide. Schools allegedly observed older men collecting girls at the gates. They heard disclosures about rape on school premises and responded by excluding the victims rather than protecting them. Taxi licensing authorities renewed permits for drivers who formed the logistical backbone of the networks and collapsed in the face of organised protests when basic safety measures were proposed. I should point out that they were not black cabs involved in that. And it identifies political failures. The report claims Labour-dominated councils and MPs were briefed on the gangs long ago, yet later denied any knowledge. It says the party prioritised electoral reliance on Muslim voting blocks and then blocked or watered down inquiries, suppressed ethnicity data and framed legitimate concerns as far-right agitation.
Well, you know, is it far right to say that Islam is cancer if I also say that I believe Christianity is a form of cancer? Is it fine if I say that? Is it okay if I say that? You know, Islam's disgusting. I'd love to see it crushed like the snakes that it is. I'm not saying the people. I just want the people to wake up and realize that they're dedicating themselves to evil forces that they don't even understand. They're talking to jinns. It's all right, whatever.